On today's episode, we talk about watching actors go through the process, peaking as a focus puller, heroes, cabin boy, and of course, not following William Fraker's advice. Just a little bit of business before we start. There may be a curse word here or there in this episode, so please listen responsibly. As always, our website, theop.io, is up and chock full of tips, tricks, and gooey operator goodness. Make sure to check out the breakdown, where the best operators in the biz explain shots they have done, the musings, where we discuss everything from quick tips to larger concepts of storytelling, the answers, the images, and so much more. I may or I may not take a break or two during this episode, but I promise that none of them will be longer than 22 seconds. Finally, if you are enjoying the podcast, please follow us, write a review, share us with your parents, and talk us up around the water cooler with your friends. So grab a beverage, sit back, and enjoy the op. Thanks for listening.
Lock it up, nice and quiet, and let's roll.
Rolling. Victor 30 Echo, take 2.
Hey, Mark. We mark.
And camera set. And action.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Op, the podcast where we talk about operating and the art of visual storytelling. I am Dave Kamaitis, your host, and we're here yet again from Panavision Woodland Hills in their theater because it sounds better than the sandbox in the back of the house. I'm really excited today because I have a great guest and a friend, Loren Yaconelli, who is a director, producing director, DP, operator. I met her as an assistant. I'm guessing she did something before that probably as well. Some of her credits, not all of them, as a director, The Walking Dead, Dead City, which I didn't even know was a thing. FBI International, The Walking Dead, which I did know was a thing. The Walking Dead World Beyond, which I didn't know was a thing and that you were a producing director on. Animal Kingdom, Shameless. Some of her DP credits, Animal Kingdom, The Shy, Shameless, House of Lies, Kingdom, Ray Donovan. As an operator, Bones, Ray Donovan, Intelligence, Glee, True Blood, Life, Heroes, and as an assistant, really the crowning achievement of her entire career because she pulled focus for me, Citizen Baines, which of course is a show that everybody saw and loves. That's not true. Loren, thank you for being here.
My pleasure. It was a crowning achievement to work with you.
It's been a downhill spiral since then, hasn't it? I mean, I know that you were pulling focus then, and then it was like, well, clearly it's never going to be this good, so I'll try to be an operator, and clearly that's no good, so so it's just been, you're searching. Is that what it is?
Yes, I've been searching this whole time. Yes, so I don't know if I ever told you this story.
Oh, God.
About my father. My father, Steve Yaconelli, who was a director of photography, and before that a camera operator, and briefly an assistant, but he was the camera operator on a movie called The Blues Brothers.
I did know that because
I sent you a picture of him on top of a car.
Well, no, and you actually, when we worked together, you casually mentioned that. And I was like, you can't casually mention that.
Hold on, please tap the brakes. So he did that. He had a wonderful career as a camera operator. He did War Games and Animal House and Cat People and just some incredible films, and he was very, very talented, and then he moved up to become a director of photography, and I believe he was working with Billy Fraker at the time as his operator, and this opportunity came up, and...
Wait, I'm sorry, he was Billy Fraker's operator?
Yes.
Oh, I see, yes.
Yes, and I can't remember the name of the film. I think it was Murphy's Romance.
Okay.
Which is impressive that I just pulled that from...
May not even be right, but I'm impressed.
So I think he was operating on Murphy's Romance, and then he had an opportunity to go shoot some little low-budget features, so Billy Fraker was like, bye.
Nice.
And when I met Billy Fraker years later, he said... Unsolicited, he gave me advice, and I think I met him at one of the ASC Awards kind of things, and he said... my advice to you is move up fast. And so what did I do instead?
Wait, what were you at that time?
I was a camera assistant.
Okay.
You know what I did instead? I did not do that. I did not move up fast.
Oh, all right. Do you think he was right?
Yes, that's what I would say. That's the exact advice I give to people now. I don't give Billy credit for it, but I should. So my father was operating on the Blues Brothers, and we were in Chicago at the time.
The Blues Brothers was a movie, I think.
It was a film.
Film?
Yes,
Okay,
it was a film.
I still, Like the fact that you casually say that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you were on the set at some point visiting
Yes,
or
I'm
something?
in the film.
You're in the film. That's right.
But I would have to point me out because I'm
like in a
very
crowd
small.
scene or something?
Yes, like several crowd scenes. So there's a couple of good stories from that. But I was 8 years old at the time.
That's awesome.
And it was summer in Chicago, and well, for part of it, and then it went into winter. And I saw my father like doing something I'm sure that was not safe, but camera on his shoulder, hanging half out of a vehicle, or doing something that you'd never do today.
No.
And I just thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I was so excited. And I waited up to talk to him when he got back to the hotel room. And I said, Dad, I want to do what you do.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and said, girls don't do camera.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And he should have known.
This is what, 80?
8. Yeah, so this was 79.
79? Okay, yeah.
So,
all right.
So he should have known how stubborn I was naturally. So, I mean, he could have said anything else, and that's what I would have done.
Do you think that he might have said that because he knew how stubborn you were?
It's possible.
Yeah,
I mean, he was very proud of me. So
sure.
Later. But at the time, I think he just wanted to save me from a life of disappointment and heartbreak.
Yeah.
And so that didn't happen.
Wow.
But yeah, I'm just that
so you've
stubborn.
lived a life of disappointment?
Yes, pretty
I
much.
See. Well, you're in the film industry, so. Yep.
Here I am. And here I am.
It's come to a podcast.
And my crowning achievement
And
on
this
top of
is
my
it.
crowning achievement.
Yeah. Just for anybody listening, this probably is not going to be the normal podcast because this is what Loren and I were like on set, and probably the reason that Citizen Baines did not do well. But we had a good time.
But we had a great time. We had a fantastic time.
We did have a good time. That's really wild.
Right? So, I mean, I used to joke with him later, like, you couldn't say girls couldn't be lawyers.
Right.
But I'm just that stubborn. So I really wanted to be a camera operator. And so growing up, I wanted to be a camera operator. And I was very excited about one day being what I thought was at the center of the entire universe of filmmaking, was being a camera operator.
Just to be clear, it is, though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, well, when
you know the name of the podcast.
with some operators,
Yes.
it's definitely the center of the universe. Yeah, it's how you're the first person to tell the story. You're the first person to see it in a way that expresses what each scene is about and what each shot is about. So yes, I still think that operating is the center of it. Not just because I was an operator for so long.
It was for that brief moment, and then you were like, "There are better jobs than this."
There was a 10-year span where operating was everything. No, I still think it's the best job on the set. I think it's the most fun, and just the most instantly expressive, and it doesn't have the heartbreak of all the things that you lose in prep when you're a DP or when you're a director. So you just walk on set and you make the best of it.
And as I've always said to people, and then they call wrap and you go home and you do whatever you want to do at home because nobody's calling you on the phone like the DP, and you're not going into 12 meetings at lunch and all that other stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People constantly, texting you and emailing you and just generally bothering you with work questions.
Did you visit your dad a lot on a lot of different sets?
No.
That was just happened to be like during the summer.
That just happened to be. So I think early on when we were younger, it was easier to go visit, and then later, not so much.
That's really cool, though.
Yeah, it's a fun one, and there were. I think I begged him to take me to the set of Cat People when he was operating on Cat People.
Okay.
And I begged him to take me to set. I really wanted to hang out with him. I was so excited. So he did not look at the call sheet. Which, as an operator, you don't have to do. You just show up and everything's cool. Maybe he would have noticed if he'd looked at the call sheet that it was a closed set day.
Not a good day.
Because it was a sex scene.
Yeah.
And so not a good day to bring your, probably 10-year-old child.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent the day in makeup and hair and then crying because I just wanted to go home. And he said, well, I would cry, but they wouldn't let me go home. So,
wow.
And that's, and actually I think I've turned out really well in spite of all
considering all that. That's great.
So, but I grew up still with this desire to be a camera operator and to follow in his footsteps. And I begged him for a chance, and he was doing a film called, which is now kind of a cult favorite, but he had agreed to shoot a film called Cabin Boy.
Oh my God.
That's right. And it was a film that
Chris Elliott?
Yeah,
Yep.
Chris Elliott. Yep. Adam Resnick was the director. Yep. It was like his first thing, and I think the experience was so awful that he never did it again.
Wow.
I'm not totally sure about that, so you might have to fact check me on it.
All right. Well, that's your opinion anyway. Go ahead.
But it was kind of amazing. I mean, it was James Gammon and Brian James, and I was a huge fan of both of those actors, and I think Brian Doyle Murray's in it. It's kind of a gem, but bonkers. And that film started non-union.
Okay.
And whoever was on the film, all those hours were retroactive, and so the film turned to a union picture about 3 weeks.
And what were you doing on the film?
And I started as a film loader.
Okay.
And so my dad hired me to be a film loader, and before I was allowed to be on set, I was told, well, why don't you go learn the equipment? So I didn't really know how to go about doing that, so I called Larry Heselwood, and this was when Panavision was in Tarzana,
uh-huh.
And I just showed up at Panavision every day and played with cameras and set them up and like no real instruction.
How old are you at this point?
I was 20. I was 20 years old.
So like you went to college, or?
Well, is
that a sore point? Should I know?
It is a little bit. I mean, I'm so glad my dad can't listen to this. But my father did not pay for college.
Okay.
And I got into UC San Diego out of high school, and my father said, well, that's nice. Who's going to pay for that? So then I went to SMC for 2 years, and then I was going to transfer. But since I was paying for it myself, I would work in between. Yeah. So I would wait tables at work. I taught dance class to 5-year-olds, which is by far, next to camera operating, my favorite job. And just tried to make it happen. So I would take these breaks from school.
But you were studying film, or like you were just getting a liberal arts?
Here's my process, is I studied psychology.
Probably more useful.
I use that every day.
Now, actually, a lot of things make sense now. Because there were all sorts of things on Citizen Bands I didn't want to do, and I didn't know why I was doing them, and now I get it. Okay.
That's right. Yes. I'm just a master manipulator. That's really...
But that actually, by the way, probably helps you a lot more in film than knowing how to build a camera.
It does. And before that, my father our activity together was we'd go to the movies.
Yeah.
And
That's cool.
So we would see sometimes 2 movies a day, and you get I guess it's easier than, taking your kid to lunch. You can just buy them popcorn. Yeah, sure. And then, so we would see a movie earlier in the day and then like take a little break and go see another one. And then I just grew up watching so many John Ford films and Akira Kurosawa films, and just, there were all kinds of films that I was probably not old enough to see.
Yeah.
That was my film education.
Wow.
So part of me, and I'm really grateful for that, and so part of me just didn't want to do film theory or film study because I just felt like that was my childhood. Sure. Maybe it would have been better if I'd had some context for those things that I was experiencing and learning, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I did see Apocalypse Now in the theater when I was quite young.
When it came out? When it came out?
That's right.
When did it come out? Like 79?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you weren't ready for that.
No. The whole thing about when they kill the cow toward the end of the film, apparently I started yelling, "That's a real cow."
That's an audience who's happy that someone brought their daughter there.
Right? Yeah, probably. I mean, today you wouldn't get away with it, I think.
A lot of pieces of the puzzle are coming together right now. I didn't know most of this. This is good. No, this is good stuff.
It's all making sense now.
So cut to you're 20 and you're on Cabin Boy.
This is going to be the longest podcast.
I know. Exactly.
It's going to be like a 2-hour podcast. I'm sure everyone's lost interest already.
I hate to break it to you, but most of them are 2 hours. This is going to be like 4. So you're 20 and you're on Cabin Boy.
So I start on Cabin Boy. My brother was the second.
Wow.
And Doug Adam was the first. And I think Stevie Bridge was the A operator.
I don't know that. I don't know who that is.
He was around
Big
a long
operator?
time. Yeah.
Okay.
He passed away a number of years ago. I couldn't tell you exactly when. And so that was my first. Sort of thrown into the deep end.
For anybody who's listening who doesn't know, you were the loader, which meant basically you were hanging out in the dark room or in a changing bag and just loading mag after mag after mag and running them to set and getting ones to download and upload and download.
Yes.
Were you hanging out on set at all, or was it just?
Oh, I was on set all the time because it was a relatively small budget film, or they put the budget into other places, so we pulled the second camera out every day.
Oh, okay.
So it was back when camera departments were relatively small.
Yeah.
So it was, my brother would then bump up and pull focus, and then I would second for both cameras.
Oh, wow.
And yes, it was very, very exciting. It was very abusive because that was way more acceptable then.
Yeah.
And camera departments were like that.
Do you want to define abusive?
Yes, I mean,
this may turn into a psychology section. Actually.
Yes, it was. I was so determined to do well, and there just weren't a lot of women in the camera department. And I was so stubborn and so fixated on, I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to put my head down, I'm going to just work as hard as I can work. And in that environment, you just took a lot of abuse.
But are you saying abuse because you were the loader, or abuse because you were a woman?
Both.
Really?
Both.
Okay.
Definitely there was a lot of that. There was a lot of judgment from the rest of the crew.
Just like, why is a woman here?
Well, and also the cameraman's daughter. So,
good point. Yeah, that's right.
So there was a fair amount of that.
This really sounds like good times.
It was good times. It was good times. But people, I think, there were a lot of guys on that crew that would just see how incredibly hard I was working and sort of feel sorry for me.
Really? Okay. So you won them over.
I did. I think
on some
so.
level.
I think so. That's my impression of what that time was like.
Yeah.
But like we worked crazy long hours, and it's sort of when you're first in the business and you think this is amazing, and I love 20-hour days. I'm fine. Look at my paycheck. This
I get
is
to
so
work
great.
20 hours today.
Exactly, 21 hours.
Believe me, I
and,
remember those
shooting
days.
at a tank in San Pedro, and it was.
And nowadays I'm on set and I'm like, look, are we going to go past 10 today? 'Cause
Exactly.
I've got a doctor's appointment about my
sleepy.
foot. Exactly.
I didn't get my full 8 hours. I can't do this anymore.
And back
My
then
feet
it was
hurt.
like, look, are we going to go 24?
Yep.
Because I've got to be somewhere on the 25th hour to another
Exactly.
job. But so you look back on that fondly.
Parts of it,
Parts of it,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
Do you remember any other women, like meeting other women in the film, in the camera department on other shows or whatever?
The first woman I met in the camera department was Bonnie Blake.
Bonnie Blake.
And that was a few years later.
She would have been assisting then?
She was assisting,
Okay.
and so she was pulling focus, and I seconded for her.
Okay.
And she was a very good focus puller.
Great. And a great operator now.
And a great operator. And so she was the first woman that I'd met. And I was so excited at that, seeing that a woman could do it, and that she didn't have to change who she was in order to do that job.
Do you remember what job that was?
I do. Also a television show my dad was shooting called Soldier of Fortune, Inc.
Oh, I remember that show. I mean, I remember it existing anyway. I don't think I watched it, but so you did Cabin Boy, and you came out of that, and you were like, basically, this is what I want to do.
Let me add it. Yeah. So I did that job, and then I did another job. So I wasn't, in all fairness, I was not a very good film loader because I have a terrible problem with math. And so,
which is a huge part of being
which is a huge part of being a film loader.
I mean, there's really two parts of it. One is closing the mag.
Yes.
Which I'm guessing you were probably good at, and the other is math. Yeah. So you're bad at math.
I'm bad at math. So I mean, it was a tremendous amount of doing the production reports, and I had math mistakes every day.
Jeez.
Every day. And I have a tendency to flip numbers. So I think it's called dyscalculia. So I do it all the time.
Uh-huh.
What's nice is that you have iPhones now, and you have things that do addition and subtraction for
Yeah.
you. But at the time, and plus you're working 20 hours a day. You're so tired.
yeah.
You're running back and forth and from the darkroom to the set. And so, yes, I used to make a lot of mistakes. So I was not the best loader. So it was good that I did not stay in that job for very long because I think my career would have stalled out
That would have
pretty
been it. Yeah. Okay.
quickly.
All right.
Like, oh, the one who can't add? Okay, yeah, let's maybe not hire her.
She's a really good loader, but
However, she works really hard, but she's kind of stupid.
yeah, you'll absolutely run out of film before the end of the day. So if that's not your thing, maybe not the best hire. So all right, so you got it. So how long did you stay as a loader?
I believe it was that and maybe one other job. And I did another film with my dad.
And I'm sorry, that got you in the union. You said
That got me in the union.
Yeah,
And
so that's cool.
Which was super cool.
Yeah.
And I didn't appreciate how lucky I was to have that happen.
Yeah.
Because it was just sort of, here
Handed
you go,
to you.
you're
Yeah,
in the union
yeah.
and it's handed to you.
Yeah.
So that was a huge boost to setting me along that career path.
Sure.
I think it would have taken me a long time to get in the union otherwise and to have that kind of experience level. I just wouldn't have. I'm not sure how it would have gone, but I don't think it would have gone that way. So I did another low budget film with my dad as a second, and then I really just started to go work with other people. I think I really stressed my dad out, and so
You mean working with him? you're
working
saying?
with
Yeah.
him, I stressed him out. So
Okay.
it made him kind of uncomfortable. We did it another couple of times, but then
Not so good.
not so much.
All right.
Not so much. He did also hire me as a first for a little bit, like a B camera first on something, and that was miserable, and that was pretty much the last time we did that.
Well, those are important lessons to learn, I think, as opposed to everybody being miserable and moving on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and how long did you second before you started firsting?
It was like maybe 5 years.
Okay.
So it was a while.
Yeah.
But I was really fortunate to work with. I worked with Ricky Mention for a while, who was an old-time first AC
Yep.
and a really good human being. And so he took me off. I think he saw how hard I was working under kind of terrible circumstances.
On these things with your dad, you're saying? Oh, okay. So he
And
saved
he
you.
was like, I'm going to just take her quietly
This isn't
over
healthy.
here.
Let's
This
move on.
isn't-"
Yeah.
And
Okay.
also, just I worked hard.
Yeah.
And, you want me to do your job too? Yes, I'll do your job too, no problem. So I would set everything up. He would just, when they said wrap, I mean, it was just like an operator. When they said wrap, he would just wave at me from the stage door.
Yeah.
And, okay, see you.
Yep.
I got you. It's all good.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Rochelle Brown was in here, and one of the things she said was, which I think what you're saying illustrates perfectly, and I agree with. It's like if you're a PA, be the best PA you can be. Don't be the PA I want to be a director. Like you want to be a director, but you be the best. And then people will see it and go, this person really hustles. I want to take them with me to the next thing and move them up because that's how it works, right? You want good people around you.
Yeah, people recognize when someone's passionate and just works hard and can make it through the day under difficult circumstances.
Yeah.
Those are the people that you want on your team.
And I think it's safe to say that this is an industry that if you aren't good and do good work, you never move up. Right?
Yeah, I've never heard of anyone
Like
failing
everyone
upwards.
has earned it, right? And
Never heard of
everybody
that.
who's in a position higher up is good. It's one of the things that I love about the film industry.
Yeah, I mean, is it unique to the film industry? I don't know.
I don't know, but it's everybody's earned it, which is what I like. So you seconded for 5 years.
Yeah.
And then when you were seconding, was it still sort of like, but you'll pull on
Yes.
you'll pull focus on
So
B
I was
camera
pulling
and-
focus pretty early on.
Yeah.
And jumping in, and it was also working on those shows where you just didn't have a complete camera department.
Yeah.
You had a one camera department, and then every day when the second camera came out of the truck, everyone moved up, everyone got that experience, everyone jumped on the next thing.
It's so funny because I don't even, that's foreign to me because like as a Steadicam operator back then, when I came in, it was it wasn't like let's pull a camera. Everybody knew I was coming in, so it was fully
Right, so they were-
fully staffed.
Yes.
But I didn't realize that like that would happen. So they basically have like the backup camera on the truck and go, let's pull it out and do another shot.
Yep.
Oh, that's interesting.
But those experiences were how you got the chops to then move into the next position.
But if you're bad at math, how did you pull focus? Because it's all math, right?
No, that's not math.
You don't call
Distance
that
is not
math?
math. No, I have a good memory for numbers when I get them correct.
Oh, I guess it's not like addition and subtraction math. Oh, I see. I see. Okay, so
I have a great
that's
memory
what
for
you're.
numbers.
Okay,
so,
gotcha.
And then I had a good feel for focus pulling. I definitely peaked as a focus puller. There was
I remember the day.
yeah, but I think I was working with you.
I think I turned to you and I was like, "That's as good as you're gonna get."
Yeah, that sucks. So I guess it's just downhill from here, eh? Cool.
What do you mean peaked? Like there was a point where you just weren't doing it as well?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and I was working on. I was the key first on a show called Without a Trace,
Oh yeah.
and it was a great show. It was a great experience, but just over time, I think the grind of television and being on a show for that long, and it just started to. I just started to lose the confidence in my
Interesting.
in my distances, and I started to rely a lot more on the Cinetape, and I could do the job, but I just wasn't as good at it, and I think I had a natural feel for it earlier on.
Interesting. Do you think like did the challenge? Was it that the challenge was gone, or you were just over it, or
No, I mean I think it was just a confidence thing.
Interesting. Wow, that's fascinating.
And the operator I was working with, who's a lovely human being, but he didn't really see focus that well.
Ooh, that's
And so
tough.
I just, when you buzz a few shots and you don't know about it till the next day.
Yeah.
And I
That
think
becomes
that
a
was
thing.
just the start.
No, and then that's just like a stone that just gathers as it goes, because like
Yeah.
you lose confidence and then something happens and you lose confidence. Because I remember you on Citizens Band as being an excellent focus puller, or I was always exactly where focus always was. It's one or the other. I was always in the right place, or your focus was
I
good.
think
But
it was
I think
probably-
you were probably better focus puller than I was.
You. Yeah, I think I had a feel for it, and also what I learned from the experience of being a focus puller. Well, there's a few things. So now that we're into the focus pulling section of my career, you stood right next to the camera.
Yep,
You did not stand in another room.
I missed that.
And the advantage of being right next to the camera is you help actors get to their blocking. You liaise between the operator and the actor. You are right there to see performance, and in a way that is, you can be invisible but right next to the actor, and that sense of like watching an actor telegraph their movements and being able to anticipate that on the focus knob, that teaches you something about operating, even though it's a different skill, but just being able to really hone in on how someone moves. And I just don't think you get that when you're looking at a two-dimensional image.
No, it's now that focus pullers are in another room, or even if they're not in another room, they're 20 feet away looking at a monitor, which, just for the record, I don't know that they have any other choice now, because back then it was, I'm close to focus and it's going to hold, and now it's an on or off, basically, situation.
Yes.
It's like they don't have any choice. But they don't, even if you weren't thinking about it, intrinsically, you understood. Like the dolly's moving, and therefore I got to adjust focus. Whereas on the monitor, it's like, oh, I think the dolly's moving, and then they catch back up. It's like focus is reactive as opposed to proactive. I think it's changed.
Absolutely, and just that sense of, especially as a key first, you're helping run the set. All those skills that you get running your department.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think it translates the same way, just because your assistants are now removed from the set.
Well, the weird thing is the second AC tends to get more on set. education, if you want to call that, than the first AC does now, which is bizarre. I mean, it's fine, but it's a completely different scenario than when we worked together. You know, but
you couldn't get rid of me. I'm just right next to you all day.
I was like, couldn't you be in another room on a monitor somewhere?
Is there something we could do where you're not here?
Why is she always here? But you mentioned something that I hadn't thought about, which is interesting because you said you're right next to the camera and you've got to be invisible to the actors. Now, I'm 4 feet away from the actors, but there's a camera in between, you know, so like, yeah, they see my head, but I'm not looking at them. But as a focus puller, and of course I'm not looking at you because I'm looking in the camera, so I never thought about it. But as a focus puller, like you're looking at them, you're looking at the lens, you're looking at them, you're looking at the lens. So how do you be 4 feet away from someone and be looking at them and be invisible?
Right. So you'd have to sort of, position your face so that you are kind of raking the lens with your line of sight. So you're seeing where the lens is, and then you're getting a sense of where the actor is, but you're trying not to look at them directly in the eye because that will pull them right out of the scene.
Exactly.
So it was just interesting to be in that room, and I was fortunate enough to work with some really good actors as a focus puller. So being able to be that close to watching a talented actor go through their process and watch their performances change from take to take was just a good education.
Do you think, you were saying that you watch the actors as far as focus pulling, do you think that like as a focus puller you sort of started to look for those tells, like when someone's going to stand up, when someone's going to walk, and then that translated to when you were operating?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because that's one of the things that I know that when I start a job, even though it's not conscious, subconsciously I'm sort of watching actors every time they do something to sort of go, okay, is there something that they do, you know, before they start walking or before they sit up or whatever. But it's weird how that stuff seeps in. And again, I don't think you see that. Like if I'm on a close-up, you're not seeing that they, shuffle their feet. The focus puller isn't now seeing that.
Or even a lean. Like we were working with James Cromwell, and he's 6'7".
I think he's like 6'14" or something.
He's quite tall. He's quite tall, and so when he would even just shift his weight, that was 6 inches.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
I don't know if you could see it as well if you're not in the same space.
Yeah, because his torso was so long. It's one of those things that I try to explain to people. It's like it's not about height; it's about the length of the torso as far as sit-ups and stuff like that. Because that's your pivot point, right? It's one of the reasons why when we're setting a hard mount on a car, I will always ask for the actor to come in a little early or to specifically say, can we take their stand-in and sit them next to the actor and see what the distance is? Because if you do it on the stand-in, you're like, oh, let's lock it here, and it's great. And then the actor comes in and the steering wheel is right in their eyes because torsos are different sizes. I have a little bit of an issue with this. I'm just going to let it go. I've said it before.
Those darn torsos.
I'm in therapy and I'm trying to work it out.
Listen, I have a degree that I might be able to help you.
That's right. This is really why I brought you in, is to figure all this out.
How does that make you feel?
Exactly. So how long did you pull focus for then?
So I pulled focus for a while. I pulled focus, I want to say almost for 10 years.
Did you really? I did. Where was Citizen Baines in that?
It was right in the middle.
So you were still doing it okay then.
That's right. That's right.
That's what it was.
So my last show as a focus puller was Without a Trace.
Without a Trace, yeah.
And from there, I got to do a bunch of operating when I was on that show. And so I also started to realize that as I was shifting and spending more time operating, and that was also the great thing about how a television show worked then as well. You always had extra units. You always had the ability to jump on a camera.
So would you go and do the splinter units and stuff?
I would go do splinter units.
Yeah.
I would jump on. They would always have 2 units, and I would jump on, the B camera, and and sometimes we'd sort of split it up with the other focus puller who wanted to operate and get some operating experience as well. So it was just a great chance. You're in a fairly safe environment, and you're somewhat supported. So it's a great place to make mistakes as an operator.
What are the hurdles that you remember when you jump from when you would jump up to operating? What were the main hurdles that you remember?
There's that fear. There's a fear of commitment.
To a shot, or
to a shot.
You mean like landing a frame and holding it?
Yeah,
kind of thing?
and just when you question yourself, when you question the frame, you will end up with a bad frame.
Yeah.
And my father, there's one of my father's gems of advice, but this is a good one, which I still use kind of for everything, which is just do something even if it's wrong. So you have to commit, whatever it is, whatever that frame is, you have to commit. And so anytime I was hesitant, I found that I wasn't making good shots. So so I had a chance to make those shots better. In terms of moving up to being an operator, I had no problem. There were no obstacles to moving up. Basically, I got the opportunity and I did it. So John Aronson, who was...
Oh, I love John Aronson.
He's lovely. We were working on Without a Trace together.
Oh.
And then he was going to go do season 1 of Heroes.
Okay.
So he brought me on as the B camera operator.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's a big show to be.
It was a big. Well, we didn't know it was a big show
of course,
at the
but
time.
it became a big show.
It became a big show, so it was a really good.
And you were the full-time B camera operator?
I was a full-time B camera operator. I was brand new. Of course, John made the mistake of telling people this was my first job as an operator.
Never a bad idea.
Because that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because perception is a problem.
Yeah.
Because, and having worked my way up through all the jobs in the camera department, except for DIT, which
didn't exist.
Thank you very much. That's how old I am. Perception is always a problem.
Yeah.
Perception of other people in terms of whether or not you can do the job is always going to be the thing, because people just see you as whatever you were the last time they saw you.
Do you think it's more so because you're a woman?
I think that can be a factor to it.
Yeah.
But usually it never used to take long because I have a pretty strong work ethic, and I've also been fortunate with the shows I've gotten to do and the experiences I've had. On Heroes, though, I have to say it was a little dicey there at first.
How so?
Well, I also had a female focus puller, and I think there was a certain amount of attention on us because we were two women in the camera department.
Okay.
And
this was late 90s?
No, this was like
2000s?
2000.
Oh, okay.
This was because we were working on Citizen Baines in 2001.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember actually.
Yeah,
because September 11th.
Yeah, that was 9/11.
Oh, that was there. That's right. I've forgotten.
That's why. That's my.
There's so much of Citizen Baines that I've forgotten.
Right? I can't imagine why.
Oh, interesting. So, and even then, because you were two women, there was.
We just had attention to us, and so if you want to. There was a line producer that had sort of taken an issue with me, and I was sure I was going to get fired.
Really? Like right off the bat, kind of thing, or
I was sure I was going to get fired. I think we were there for a month, and I just felt like we were going to get fired. So I decided to just take as much advantage of the experience as I could. It was my first chance of being a full-time operator, so I just started making my own movie.
What does that mean?
I wouldn't really wait to be told what the shot was. I would just kind of start to set something up. I would just make choices. I would start telling the story the way that I saw it. And you can do that on B camera. You can kind of shine in that circumstance. You can start on something cool. You can, rather than just doing the wide shot, you can tell a story. You can pull the audience into what the scene is.
But you're saying you would do this after you figured out what the A camera shot is, I'm assuming. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
And I got in the habit of, sometimes it took a while to get my camera, and then it took a while for them to set up the floor for the A camera. So I've just gotten the habit of standing in a spot on set where I could see where everything was going on and sort of position myself in a place where I could envision the shot.
Where you thought your camera would be?
Where I thought the camera would be, but also because I couldn't always get there, I just started to visualize that space in a different way. So, which is actually quite good training, and I just didn't know that that's what I was being trained to do.
Yeah.
And so I started envisioning the shot without a lens, without a finder, without anything, because I didn't have any of those things. So I just had to kind of come up with something, and then I'd get it at the last second. Then I'd have to help the assistant get the marks. And so it was just really, it was very good training. And so I was just doing things and making it kind of fun for myself, thinking that any day I was going to get fired.
I'm getting fired anyway, so I might as well do what I want to do.
So I'm at least going to try stuff and I was on the wheels a lot. So I was really just trying to take the experience and use every day to become a better operator, not thinking that I was going to be employed very much longer. Yeah. So then there was a conversation in a van during a scout, and there were 2 directing producers on the show. Mm-hmm. And so they started to talk about crew. Well, who do you think, how do you think of this person? How do you think of this person? And when they got to my name, both directors went, "Oh, we love her. She's great."
No, wait, but you weren't in the van, obviously.
I was not
in
the
van.
About this. It was relayed to me later. Yes, and so both of those directors had started to cut their episodes, their first 2 episodes, and
they saw what you were doing.
And they saw what I was doing.
Nice.
So that sort of protected me for a while, which was good. And then I still just kind of kept doing what I was doing and fumbling over. It was a good show to push myself on and just to try new things, but it was all in the realm of what's going to make me a better storyteller. And that's the way that I approached it. Yeah.
Did you realize at the time that could totally backfire on you if that's not what people wanted?
Well, I already thought I was getting fired.
So you just didn't care.
So I just didn't care.
Yeah. Were you surprised that it didn't backfire?
Yes.
Okay.
Very much so. I was so surprised that I was not getting fired.
I could just see you basically being like, "No, but this isn't the way this was supposed to go. I thought I was going to get another job."
Exactly. Hey.
And how was there friction with the A camera operator because you were basically, pulling stuff off?
No.
No drama with that.
I do have a funny story about it. You probably were going to have to cut this out, but I'll tell you the story anyway because I think it's hilarious.
Therefore, I'll leave it in. Go ahead.
So on that show, there was they started to alternate DPs, so they moved up the A camera operator, who was Nate Goodman.
Nate Goodman, yeah.
So Nate started to alternate DP. With John, and they brought in Peter Mercurio. Who's hilarious,
Yes,
New York guy,
He's hysterical.
He's so funny. And so he's on A camera, and there was a scene where Ali Larder was the actress, and she was doing I think, what was the scene? Oh, it was a whole like striptease number. So
okay.
it was a section of the show where they projected 5 years into this imagined future, and so she then owns a strip club, and so she does this
Gotcha.
striptease performance, right? So they choreographed a whole dance. Paul Edwards was the director, and an ex-camera operator, so he was off the heels of doing Lost, and
okay.
So now he's directing the show, and so I walk onto set, and all the men are talking, and it's the producing director, the director.
This is on the striptease set.
This is
okay.
on the striptease set. So producing director, DP, A camera operator, right? So they're all in a huddle.
Yeah.
And I'm on time, so clearly they came in to have a conversation, right?
Uh-huh.
So when I walk in, they stop talking and they look at me. So I now know there's probably something up with this whole conversation, right? So, hey guys, good morning. And then Paul says, "Listen, here's what I want. I want face and ass, face and ass." And I basically took out, like a faked, like a pad and pencil, and I was like, "Wait, do you want face and then ass, or ass and then face?"
This, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know, is a classic Loren Yaconelli snarky response.
It is a
Which anybody who's ever worked with her knows exactly what she's talking about. Go ahead.
Face and then ass, and I did say it in front of the producing director, who thought it was hilarious. And then Peter comes up to me and generously said, do you want me to do the tight stuff? Do you want me to do the long lens? And I just looked at him, and then he's like, never mind. You
because they thought you would be offended by this?
No, because the idea was, and also the DP, Nate, who was lovely, but he said, yeah, make it sexy. Try and make it really sexy. Just channel me as if I were operating. I think the idea was...
Nothing against Nate Goodman. I wasn't saying that.
Was how would a woman be able to show another woman being sexy, right?
God's sakes.
I mean, that's...
Wow.
Because it just didn't compute. It's not like they were intentionally thinking something bad. It was just they just couldn't understand how one woman would be able to show another woman in a way that made it sexy, right? Because how could I possibly... So while they were still talking about stuff, I went to the choreographer.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, can you mark out the...
Show me what they're doing,
Can you mark out the dance for me?
Yeah.
So, like... No one else is paying attention. She's on the stage. Yeah. And she's walking through the movements for me.
And you're making something up in your mind that you're going to do, probably, right?
Yeah, and also I'm just learning the choreography because that would be the smartest thing to do.
It would be. It wouldn't be the sexiest thing to do, but it would be the smart thing.
It is fairly sexy if you actually know what's going to happen.
Yes, that's exactly right.
That's the sexiest thing you can do. So I learned the choreography, hysterical. Right? It was so funny. You're probably going to have to cut it all out.
No, I'm not so cutting any of this out. It's great.
So like, all these dudes are going to be like, what? So then we do a take. And yes, because I had actually learned the choreography, I made it look quite sexy. And so everyone calmed down after that. But it was just one of the funniest things. And it was just sort of, it's that moment of everyone felt like they had to say something to me about it in order to help coach me to this place.
Did they get in a line and you'd like...
Very much so. It sort of reminded me of that scene in, I think it's Postcards from the Edge, where Meryl Streep just, like, every time she turned around, there was another producer, like, hi, I'm executive producer,
Yeah. Wow. That's kind of amazing.
I want to talk to you about the day's rushes. Yeah.
That's kind of amazing.
I know.
I don't think I can comprehend thinking that someone would...
Right, as a female, how could you possibly know what makes another woman sexy?
But it's not even that. It's like, to me, here, I'm not there, so whatever, but... To me, it's not the camera operating that makes it sexy. It's what's going on them. I mean, I guess if I'm like jerking around and going to toes and stuff like that, maybe that's not sexy. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's like just
but it
shows, it's kind of languid and I'm guessing if she's stripping,
right?
That's sort of the sexy part, not the nobody ever looks at a show and goes, that camera operating was pretty hot.
Camera operating was so hot. That framing was hot.
Yeah,
HOTT.
Yeah, I wouldn't even. Okay, all right.
Right.
Good,
so, but it was so funny to me. It was one of those times where sometimes just sexism is hilarious, and so actually most of the time sexism is hilarious.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's a good way to look at it. So that's for sure.
Well, you laugh or cry.
Yeah. Well, but the other thing is, I think that though that you have a misplaced confidence. I mean, for a woman. And
could you?
People are writing in right now.
Words,
I'm joking
please?
Because I know Loren. No, but I think it's because you have the confidence where you're like, right. Why are you all being so silly? As opposed to, how dare you think that I don't know this?
Why are you being all so bananas?
Yeah.
But it was just funny. It was the whole thing, and it just kept getting funnier. Yeah. And so I thought. Then you have the thing of, well, I better not mess this up. So
sure.
So then I had to educate myself on the choreography and
out of curiosity for me, is a sexy shot using the wheels or is it using the fluid head? Is one sexier than the other?
I don't remember. I think I did use the fluid head so that I could help the assistant find focus.
Ah, there you go. Okay. Because out of focus is not sexy.
Out of focus. Well, sometimes it's very
sexy.
sexy.
Well, that's true, actually. So
I beg
there
to
you
differ,
go.
sir.
Anyway, this is a whole half hour. Anyway,
so,
but that's kind of fascinating. That's kind of wild. I mean, have you because look, I mean, clearly you've been successful as a filmmaker, I should say. Have you felt that there's been sexism along the way of people going, you can't do this, you're a woman?
Yeah.
Like consistently? Yeah,
absolutely. And it mattered less in some of those other jobs because
The higher up you got?
the higher up you get, I think it matters more.
Oh, really?
Because it's just a question of how much support you get.
Sure.
And as much as I like to think I'm an army of one, I'm not. I'm not an army of one. So filmmaking is a collaborative process. But when I was a focus puller, you'd walk onto a set and most of the guys just looked at you and didn't think you could do the job. And so, but it was very easy to show them that you could, and all you had to do was something physical.
So, but what do you do with that? Do you just ignore it?
Yeah, you just ignore it, but like it usually goes away pretty quickly because I would pick up the sticks and the head and the camera and walk across a football field, and obviously that's stupid. And
but that is what everybody used to do.
My
so
back doesn't hurt more.
Yeah.
But that's what everybody used to do. So if you could do that,
which
has nothing to do with focus pulling, by the way,
No.
but that was what showed everyone like, oh, she's okay, she can do it.
But I guess the point is for anybody who's going, what? You didn't do that because you were a woman. You did that because that's what
the
all
job
assistants
was.
did.
That's
and
what the job
yes,
was.
it was
Yeah.
stupid, and that's why most older assistants have no back.
Walk hunched over.
Yeah.
So that's what you did. You'd take the sticks in the head and you'd go up a hill and you'd figure out how to park it and so that
I
it didn't
remember you
fall
doing that
over
in Citizen Bands, and there were people like, you should help her. And I'm like, look, I'm not helping her because I'm a man and she's a woman. I'm not helping her because she's stronger than I am, and I can't do that.
Because I would just get in the way right now.
It would be really ugly if I did any of that. So basically you just persevere.
Yeah, I just persevered.
But how do you let it mentally not get to you?
I mean, because as a woman, you get really used to it. So it doesn't really get to you because it's what you experience every single day.
I guess so. Wow, it's so weird because I don't really have a frame of reference to understand. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I understood. I mean, the reality is I show up on set and people think, oh, he's beautiful.
Right.
Clearly he can't do his job. And then I have to get past that. But thinking that I'm that good looking is it's a plus, really. Do you know?
It's
I mean, you understand.
Heavy lies the head that wears the crown. I totally get it.
The key is I never let it get to me, and I'm not full of myself. But enough about me, more about me.
But above all things, I am super modest.
But seriously, like, yeah, I can't. It would be disingenuous if I said that. The only thing that comes close is that I moved up so quickly when I was young that when I came in, people, I think, at least my impression was like, he can't do this. But it's also why I would rarely shave, and I would try to look and I'm 6'4", so that helps, and I would try to look as old as I could, but it's not even, it's nowhere near the comparison.
Right, and it's interesting because you just get it in different forms.
Yeah.
I mean, as a DP, I was hired on a job. I was hired by the executive producing showrunner. And when it came time to making my deal, I was told, well, you have really big shoes to fill. You'd never say that to a male DP, would you? You have big shoes to fill. Also, by the way, and I won't tell you what the show was, but I was the lowest paid DP. And the show was in multiple seasons. But
that said, you had the credits to. In other words, it wasn't like this is your first job.
It was not my first job. So it's stuff like that, and you just sort of deal with it, and you keep going because what I love is being on a film set. So there are things about that aren't shiny and happy, but I love the opportunity to get to do what I do. Mm-hmm. I love the fact that they pay me to go to these places and play filmmaker for however long the job is. And so I only feel fortunate to be able to do that. So some of the other nonsense just is part of it.
It's just baggage and you move past it.
Yeah, like there's no perfect situation. So if the one imperfect thing is when you're out in the business of making movies or making television, it's still very much, for the most part, very male and very white. and that's the.
You don't see that changing at all?
I do see it changing.
Yeah.
It just takes a while, and so I think the change is sort of misleading when you look at the National Executive Board, and it's very
National Executive
of Local 600.
Of Local 600, the sort of governing organization, if you will,
so to speak.
Yeah.
When you look at that group, it's a very diverse group, and I don't think that represents
the membership
accurately. The membership.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think what it comes down to is these things take time. They don't change overnight, and I think they're slowly changing.
I like to say it takes a long time to turn a ship this big.
Do you sit at home and just say that out loud?
Yeah, I do.
And the cat's like,
I do.
What the hell is she talking about?
Cat's
so
demise.
When you moved to DPing, did you miss operating?
Oh, so much so, because as an operator, I mean, I would say one of the people that really supported me and I learned so much from was Sid Seidel.
Oh, I love Sid Seidel.
And he's just so talented.
I've never worked with him. He calls me like once a year, and we just keep on.
Yeah.
I like to say we're like ships that pass in the night.
Do you say those?
I
things
do,
to
but I say it in
yourself
front
at
of the
home?
dogs, so it's a slightly different thing. And my
so
wife,
you are supporting.
My
I
wife
understand.
looks at the dogs and is like, "He's saying it again." and then I sort of think to myself, "Loren understands." I don't know why anybody's going to want to listen to this episode, and it sort of is going exactly the way that I thought it would. Yeah, no, and unfortunately, but I've talked to him, and he seems like such a lovely guy, and he's so talented.
So talented, and he taught me so much. And
but you operated for him?
I operated for him.
What did you operate with?
On Life. So I met him. I came in as a B operator on Life, and when that season shut down, and it was right around the writer's strike. So
2008.
So that season shut down, and then they wanted to keep me and wanted to bring me on as the B operator for the following season. And the writer's strike was really terrible, and I had just been through a divorce, so I pretty much had no money.
Just perfect timing.
It was perfect timing, and I was really down to like my last $1,000,
oh.
and my rent was like not $1,000,
yeah.
And so I had that moment of like, well, this is now I'm in trouble. This is
sucks.
Not good. This sucks. So on the list of things that went wrong this year, this is definitely one of them.
Oh.
And then I got a call from Cynthia Pushak, who was doing Brothers and Sisters and
cinematographer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she offered me the A camera spot on Brothers and Sisters, and I was so grateful to go do it. And I did that until Sid called me back, because I really wanted to go back to that show. And I told Sid, I said, look, I'm an A camera operator over here.
Yeah.
And that's what I would like to be over there. And he was like, oh.
Crap.
And then, but he went for it.
Yeah.
And it ended up being such a great experience.
And how long did you stay on that show as an
Well,
A-camera
it only
operator?
went another season.
Oh. So, but 20,
it was such a good show.
22 episodes though? Then? I mean, a full season?
Yeah, it was a full season.
Yeah.
I think.
So by the end of that, you're fully an established
Yes.
A-camera operator. I mean, or you suck. But
Yes.
Could go
So
one way or the
that
other.
kind of solidified, and it was, especially as an A camera operator, to have that interaction, and Sid is so supportive as a DP, and really, would have those conversations with directors, but then once he gave you the set, he gave you the set.
That's
So,
great. Sink or swim.
Yeah, sink or swim, and
Yeah.
and just an invaluable experience. And plus, it was a fun show, and there were lots of great things about it.
There's a great, for anybody who hasn't seen it, Loren did a really cool breakdown of season 2 of Life. Yeah.
Season 2,
Of
last
a cool,
episode.
handheld shot that's not what you normally would expect. It's pretty cool. It's on the website. And you DP'd for what, 5 years?
I DP'd for 5 years. So after Sid and I did Life together, then we did. Then I jumped on to some other show, and then I went back and worked with Sid on Lie to Me.
Okay.
And that was also a great show, although it was a lot of handhelds, and we were using the D21.
I don't remember that. Was that like one
The
of the
D21
early...
was HD because Life was on film.
Okay.
So the D21 was Aries sort of.
Oh,
it was about
sort of remember
like
this.
with the lens and everything on it. It was like 60
It was
pounds.
massive.
It was 60 pounds, and so I remember doing this handheld shot. And as the actor went down to like, she kind of slumped down in this corner, and I went down and I got onto a knee, and then I realized I was never getting back up again.
I've committed fully.
I
remember those times.
And so that was a nice awakening. But that show was fun to do, and then I, as I tend to do when I get someplace and I think this is really nice, I like it here. Mm-hmm. Oh, what's that over there?
There's something shiny in the corner.
There's something shiny. I like that chair. I think I would like to sit there. So Sid gave me an opportunity to really, really mess up as a second unit DP
on that show.
On another show called The Finder.
Okay.
Which only went one season, but I was able to start shooting second units and
you were the operator,
myself.
and he would shoot you over to second unit.
Yes, I was the A operator, and then he would give me the opportunity to shoot a second unit.
Yeah.
And even after the first time I did it, they let me do it again.
They were probably hard up for people, I would imagine. It was busy, and
sure,
we didn't have other phone numbers. And
I think it was very busy in town. And so I started to have the experience of shooting, and I also realized I couldn't be an operator forever. That there's a window on just physically being able to do the job, and for me. And
thank you for saying for me.
You're welcome.
Because I know you're talking about me, but I can't take it yet.
So I'm looking at you and pointing at you, but I'm so talking
There's
about
a reason I created a podcast.
So yeah, I felt like it was just the natural progression, and
sure.
and I wanted to see if I could do it, and that was also part of it. Like, well, maybe I could be good at it, and I was not at first, but then I got better.
Yeah.
and again, it was as soon as I just focused on the storytelling, then I got better.
Yeah.
Then I was so afraid of the technical aspects of it, because I thought, especially coming up in the business and my father is a DP, I just thought that being a DP was very much alchemy. It was, everything had to be so technical, and you were these formulas that you were putting into this machine in order to make it look good, and so I was a little bit afraid of it.
But you came up as a DP purely in digital then, right? Did you DP in film?
I DP'd on film.
Oh, okay.
A bit.
That's when you started out. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think there is a little bit more to the alchemy idea on film than digital, just because you're sort of guessing at what you're gonna get, or you don't know, you can't see it.
Yeah, it's a little more stressful because you don't know till the next day if you've really messed it up or not.
Yep.
Which is always exciting.
Good times.
It's good times. It's good times. I mean, the great value of starting as a focus puller or starting as a camera assistant is that when you mess up and you blow a shot, if you're still thinking about that shot when you go to set up the next shot, you'll blow it.
Yep.
And so it just puts it in your mind of, well, I know that was terrible, and if I could do this day over again, I would, but I can't. So now I just have to do something different.
I got to move forward.
I have to move forward.
But that's a huge part of the game for when you're younger, right?
Yeah.
Because like you berate yourself, and you there's a huge shot I did on West Wing that.
Oh, was that a show you worked on?
Yeah, let me tell you about it. Excuse me as I talk about myself for a while. No, but there's a huge shot that I did on West Wing which is a TV show that I worked on. I can tell you about it later. But
won some awards. Maybe you've heard of it.
I don't know how we ever got anything done. That I think we did like 16 times, and take 9 was just absolutely perfect. And 15 seconds before the end of the shot, I kicked it with my knee.
Yeah.
And I remember. I mean, I went into a corner and I almost cried. Yeah. But I remember very specifically as I was walking back to one, going, you have to get this out of your head, because if it's in your head, take 10 that has no
Take 10
chance.
is doomed.
You're done.
Yeah.
And so there is that mental game you play, right? Where you like, and it's almost like you have to lie to yourself, and you're like, no, you're good enough, and people like you.
Smart
like,
enough.
Yeah, no, seriously, like you have to become a cheerleader for
can do
yourself. And I don't know about you, but to me, it's always like your frontal lobe or whatever is going, you can do this, and the back of your brain is going, you suck. You are so bad.
You suck.
And it's like this push-pull situation where you're like hoping that the good side wins, because otherwise
security is getting ready to escort you off the stage.
But otherwise, on the next take, you're like, let's put the light in the shot, and you're just completely, it's off the rails. So I get it. It's a mental game that you play constantly, right? I mean, as a director, do you still do that?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
God, yeah. I've been really fortunate. I've had some great experiences and shows that were fun and that were challenging, but not in a way that I couldn't come out on top every day.
Yeah.
And I did one show where every day was just an exercise in misery. And every day...
You mean an episode of something that you were a guest
yes.
on? Or yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was just miserable.
Was
every
it
single day.
because of personalities?
I was hamstrung on a lot of levels in terms of what the budget was.
Yeah.
And so they'd made these concessions and they'd made these stipulations for how the shoot was going to go. And so you could only shoot 10 hours. And it just became so difficult to get anything done.
Gotcha.
And the first shot of every day took an hour to set up.
Oof.
And then every shot after that took an hour to set up. And so it's a series of compromise and every day was heartbreaking. Every day I would go back to the apartment where I was staying and just, how am I going to get through tomorrow?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? And I just didn't have the experience to learn how to say no.
Say no. This
can't be done.
You have to do something else or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
With that what you guys are asking me to do, I cannot do. And I didn't have that experience because my experience is production, which is no matter what you throw at me, I will do it.
The answer is always yes, and then you turn around and go, okay, how the hell do we do this?
I will make this happen. I will, whatever you need me to do, I'm going to do. I'm going to put my head down, and I don't care what abuse is being hurled at me. I'm going to just do it. And that doesn't necessarily serve the show.
Yeah.
And so that was a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. But hopefully one you only learn once.
I hope so. God, I hate to learn it again. But yeah, it's
But it sounds like that's not filmmaking, that's damage control.
Damage control,
which
very
is
much
just
so.
like
That's a great
horrible.
way to put it. It was awful.
Yeah.
It was awful. I would rather chew light bulbs than ever do that again.
But I think there's something to be gained from that across the board, because to me, I don't know if this is the case with you, but I've found that most of my learning comes from failing.
Oh yeah. So you must be very smart.
Thank you so much. I am actually the best filmmaker in the world because of it. Yes, but it's because
I agree. Those are the lessons you remember.
Yeah, Chris Chulak, who we worked together with, used to tell me, it's like you very rarely see people actually succeed or recognize it, but you see people fail constantly, and so it's learning from that and going, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to do that. And then sometimes it's you. But
sometimes you're the teacher.
Yeah, or I shouldn't say that. People do succeed, but it's like passive. It's sort of like, they got it done. As opposed to like, you very rarely see people hit home runs or recognize it when it happens until long after the fact.
Yes.
But you
very
can see
so.
You can see the ship burning.
Very much so. Very much so. Yeah, I mean, and some situations are like, well, this is the Bermuda Triangle of television shows.
This is never going to happen.
This is never going to happen.
But so now at this point, you're like, you just hit it head on, where you're like, you've had enough experience where you can go, I just want to let everybody know that this is not possible, and it's going to fail.
And to have the confidence to say, this is what I'm saying is what's best for the show.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that before. Before I was like, whatever you guys need me to do.
When you first started directing, you mean?
When I first started directing, and also I would have taken that attitude right up until this one experience that I'm referring to.
Until you realize it.
realize that was not the way to handle it.
Was it something you came to on your own, or did you like sort of after the fact discuss this with someone and they went, oh, well, you got
Oh, no, I came to it on my own.
Yeah.
And then it just, you can take an experience like that and you can just choose to let it be a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And some lessons are more expensive than others,
Sure.
but also the harder the lesson, the more you learn. And so coming out of that experience, I would say I'm absolutely a better director than I was. And it's also given me that passion for continuing to be better and more so as a storyteller, to more so that those technical aspects of directing that I didn't really focus a lot on. I think sometimes I go in on instinct and my instinct as a storyteller, and because the technical aspect was, for me, that's the camera and everything that is surrounding the camera. But there's other technical aspects to being a director, and that is breaking down the script and putting it into categories that can help you approach it on a different level.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't really doing that. I was sort of, taking the script as it was, trying to make exactly that, and obviously putting my fingerprints on it, but I wasn't really putting my handprints on it, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I think I have a different approach, which, just having the drive. And I take that as a gift that I've been given this drive to continue to improve and to continue to learn as much as I can and to do better. Because I think that's also I would say that's a theme throughout my career. And especially as a woman in the camera department, you worked because you did better.
You mean you were hired on the next show?
Right.
Yeah.
And the quality of your work meant that you could work on the next show.
Yeah.
And you had to be better than the person standing next to you, or you just weren't going to work.
You just weren't going to work. But and what you were saying reminds me of what you were saying about Heroes. Is you went, okay, I'm just going to craft this to be the way that I think the story should be told, and hope that everybody is okay with that.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like that's sort of a through story. As a director and as a DP, but maybe it's the same, I'm wondering if it's different, what do you expect from what do you look for in camera operators?
For me, it's that where we can connect on a level that we're just talking about story. When we can just talk about story, when we don't have to talk about framing, those are the conversations that I love the most. And I love talking to operators because we have that sort of similar vocabulary, and we can approach things from that level.
Mm-hmm.
And but when we cannot talk about specifically how it's going to be framed, where I can say, let's start over here and end it over there, and they can tell what the shot is because of the way that I blocked it.
Yeah.
So basically, I like operators that I talk less to, I guess is what I'm saying.
That probably comes from having worked with me.
But that's a roundabout way of saying it. But those are the operators that I like working with the most, and where we just are talking about
the story,
what the story's about, and whose scene is it, and whose shot is it. That every shot sort of starts with, whose story am I telling? What perspective am I in?
Uh-huh.
And so when you have an operator who's read the script and has a sense of what that storytelling is, then you have another level to communicate on.
Can you tell when an operator hasn't read the script, but
Absolutely.
just basically came in and read the sides for that day?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Darn it.
Looking at you. I'm looking at you right
Darn
now.
it. No,
yeah, I mean, look, sometimes you're just that talented, and you can, and also when you're working, it depends on what you're working on. If it's procedural and
Sure.
you know who number 1 and number 2 are on the call sheet, then you
Absolutely.
know exactly how that framing and how that blocking is going to go, and it's not,
Yeah.
it's not.
I will admit there are shows we might have worked on one, where for one reason or another I haven't read the script. And the interesting thing is because you shoot it out of order, you're like, oh, she's been in a car accident. And then the next day you're like, oh, wait a minute, she was like driving through a storm. This is getting interesting. And it's putting all the pieces together. It is not the way a good operator should do things. But yeah, there's no question that you should absolutely know the script inside and out, because that's how you can make informed decisions. And it's how you can talk to a director or a director of photography on a level that's not about put them in the upper right-hand corner of the frame or whatever.
Right. And in all fairness, I mean, I'm sure you've had the experience too where you've worked with directors who didn't know the script inside and out.
Oh, yeah.
And wait, who's in this again? And what's their character?
What's happening in the scene? And
what's their character do?
Yeah.
Oh, she's married to that guy.
Yeah, exactly. And you're
really?
looking at them and going, don't you get residuals for this?
Yes,
like,
and it's later when you work as a director that you're like, hey, you failed miserably.
Yeah, and I personally, actually, as an operator, I find that to be, I find it insulting.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know what? I did my homework, and I'm not getting paid anywhere near what you are. Like, how can you not be taking advantage of this?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable to me. But everybody to their own. And what besides what you said, you look for in a good operator? What's a bad operator do?
Ooh, I would say an operator who's afraid of commitment.
Committing to a frame.
Committing to a frame, committing to a shot, committing to the focal point of what they think the shot is about.
Uh-huh.
And every time you see an operator hesitate or, readjust the framing or get stuck in a frame, that you're like, well, I see what's happened. But my father, because when he passed away, I was just starting to operate.
Mm-hmm.
And so we communicated through email a lot. And he sent me an email that was the best operating advice that I've ever received.
Ooh.
And I'll share it.
I was going to say,
I'll share it with
speak
everyone.
right into the mic now, because
Okay,
basically
can you
the
hear
reason
me
I've
now?
done this
Okay.
podcast is because I'm looking for this information. So please share it.
Actually, the microphones, all of this, it's all a lie.
It's all a lie.
It
We're
was
not
really-
even in a theater, actually. This is AI. Yeah.
So he said, just react to what you see, not to what you think is going to happen. Keep your hands loose.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's really good advice.
Yeah.
And it's because you always have to have the possibility as you're watching a performance, as you're looking at the shot, that every take could be different.
Yep.
And so anytime you get locked into what you think that shot's going to be, you will make a mistake because you're not in it. You're not in the moment. You're not in the scene with the actors. You're apart from it, just thinking, oh yeah, we've done this. The shot is from A to B, and I can stop.
Yep.
I can stop thinking. I can stop participating.
Yeah. Well, and going to what you were talking about before with storytelling, what I always find, and I should say this is with good actors, with bad actors it's a little harder. But if you're watching the story and not the frame,
Yeah.
if there's a change, you're going to be aware of it.
Right.
Again, bad actors not so much, because then you miss it and you're like, well, that was a choice I didn't see coming.
I didn't see that coming.
I guess that's your choice.
I mean, some performances you start thinking about what you're going to get on the market on the way home.
There's no question about that. And when you made the jump from B to A, was there a big sort of, oh, now I'm on a much bigger plane and I've got to be a much bigger part of this machine and work with the AD and keep things moving and da-da-da-da-da?
I think there was a learning curve to it, but having been an 8-camera focus puller for a good amount of time, there wasn't any difference in terms of running a set and
because you were next to the camera and you just saw what it did.
and communicating
Yeah,
and working with actors and shifting the blocking and all those things were skills that I had already had.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky that way that I didn't have to like show up as an 8-camera operator and then learn how all those things go.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I'm trying to think if there was any like real adjustment with it. And there there really wasn't.
Well, it sounds like, unlike now, because you were in the thick of it, it just sort of seemed natural.
Yes.
What you were supposed to do. Now, as a director, do you like the B camera operator to be coming up to you going, hey, what about this and what about that one? What about that
Yeah,
one?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Because what you want as a director when you, and this is sort of the great thing about being a television director, everyone, is when you just show up and you've been given a set of tools. And here's the tools. It's the look of the show, the lenses, the cast, the style of the show. You just are handed this box, and they're like, and go make a story.
Do something with it. Yeah.
So do something with this, and so what's wonderful is when you walk onto a set and you know that everyone is participating in that. So to have an operator who's excited about their job and about telling the story and making something cool, like you never want to squash anyone's enthusiasm. So I love those conversations.
Gotcha.
Sometimes you get a salty A operator who
salty. Was that for me?
That was not directed at you.
Okay. As far as I know. Anyway.
We'll see. I don't know. It's been a while. You might be salty.
Most people go with angry. I don't know if salty. Salty I like. Anyway. Yeah.
So I think salty is a nice way to say
Salty's a more refined way of saying it.
and you have those conversations of, well, here's what I want the shot to be, and you discuss it and you agree on it, and then you walk away and you come back, and then the A operator wants to change it. And, well, I think it's better if we do this. Like, no. No, I don't think it is.
No,
because we just talked about it.
Yeah.
And the time to have changed it would have been in that.
Do you run into that?
Yeah, sure.
A lot?
It just, no, I wouldn't say a lot. It just depends.
Uh-huh.
It just depends. But I think it just is out of, sometimes as an A operator, you get in the habit of having to carry directors.
Sure.
And so you get kind of used to that.
Yeah.
So I think there are some operators that then can't shift gears.
They can't turn it off.
Right.
Well, I will say, on TV, the first day of a new director, you're probably leaning into it a little more until you figure out what they need or what they don't need. Well, I don't know if that's true, but basically you're trying to figure out what they need and what they don't need and how much you're going to have to be into this and whether you can take this episode off and then just do what they want or whether you've got to drive the bus. But yeah, there's a fair amount of that. There's no question about that. What about, was there anything that you did when you started operating, not going in and working on the wheels or whatever, to sort of understand operating more, understand framing more?
I think.
Do you study movies, or were you on set enough that it was just
I was sort of raised on movies, and for me, operating was very much, if you know what you like, then you can pick a frame.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes there were mechanics in terms of what that meant. And, oh, no, you don't want to cut someone's ankles off because you're trying to carry the headroom, and that was stupid. You should have anticipated that as they walk closer to you, you could have tipped way up and done something interesting. And so there were some of those mechanical things to learn, which really is just the experience of doing it.
Yeah.
I did take a set of wheels home and from Panavision Tarzana, and they sat on my coffee table.
Nice.
And I had a little laser pointer that I attached to them, and I would, write my name on the wall and stuff like that, and
Well, and the bottom line is now probably, look, back then you could have grabbed a fluid head most likely on any show you were on if you had to, but now with remote heads being on every single show all the time, it's like if you don't know how to do the wheels, you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's the reality of it.
That is the reality of it.
You're going to get locked out at some point. What about working with actors? Because you work with actors obviously now as a director, but as an operator, any advice for people like working with, because I mean, they're all over the place, right? They're method actors. They're actors who are like, where am I standing? What am I saying? What do I do? And go.
I think, and this is true as a director, that when you are working with an actor you haven't worked with before, and this is true as an operator as well, they just want to trust you. So they want to be able to trust you.
Mm-hmm.
And especially the operator, you're the closest one to them. You're the closest one to the performance. And so they want to be able to look at you and know that you're paying attention to what they're doing. And so you start to develop that trust. And that hasn't changed as a director.
Yeah.
I find that because it's also easy to you get stuck at Video Village, you can get stuck behind a monitor. And I try not to do that because I don't like it. I don't feel comfortable.
So do you sit out on the floor?
Yeah, I sit out.
Like behind the dolly or something?
I stand behind the dolly, or they set up, the minis in a corner so I can be on set. But a lot of the times I'm just so comfortable being on set.
Sure.
That's where I just stay all the time. And I still do it. I used to stand on set all the time. I never left set, and I still am like, oh, it's nice here.
There's cool things going on over there. Yeah, I have to say that people talk to me about, why haven't you moved up to DPing? And there are a myriad reasons. But one of the things is like, I just couldn't sit in a tent all day.
Yeah.
Would lose my mind.
I mean, I had a DIT at the end of my DP career, which, I mean, it's technically not over because I could still shoot some stuff.
Yeah.
But we had a DIT on Animal Kingdom, which is the last thing that I shot. And there were times where you get kind of, I might get a little lazy and sit in the chair for a while because you get bored. It's true. I'm just going to be totally honest.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like, I would light from set because set is where I could see everything. And also it was a handheld show, so I just never... I wouldn't ask an operator just to stand there and hold it.
Yeah.
So I could see the shot from set.
And we all appreciate that.
Yes, yes. And that's also something that when I was first operating, and this was good advice I got from another operator, Simon Jays, who I was working with at the time, who's very talented, very good operator. And he brought it up to me that, when you're looking at your shot and you're on set and you're watching the blocking, that you're looking at what you think it's going to be and the side of the line you're going to be on, and then you should go to the other side. So do a rehearsal where you're on one side, and then on the next rehearsal, go look at the other side of the blocking to make sure you're not going to get into an issue.
Not the other side of the line, but the reverse.
The reverse.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is really, really good advice.
Yeah.
And so when I was first operating, I made sure to do that, and I was really diligent about that. And then I got into that situation where you couldn't always move. You couldn't always be on where the reverse was. And so then I just got in the habit of being able to sort of look at it in my mind and shift it.
And figure it out, yeah.
And figure it out.
Well, but it's also like, in a weird way, it's damage control, right? Because you're sort of going, what problems am I creating? What problems may I be creating that I haven't thought about yet?
Right.
And sometimes you can only do that early on anyway by standing there. Eventually, like you said, you can sort of 3D visualize it in your mind. But
And now I just tend to stand. I don't even stand where the A camera goes. I just kind of put myself in a place where I can see the whole thing and then sort of shift it around in my mind because I've just had so much experience doing it that. And it's I think it's annoying to people because they get used to, the director's just going to stand where the A camera shot is.
What's annoying? Oh, it's annoying to people that you're not standing there?
That I'm not standing where the
I see,
where
because
the shot
everybody's
is.
looking at you going, wait, the A camera's over there?
Yeah, exactly. And it happens all the time because I'm like, oh, no, that's the master over there.
No, I'm just the
Sorry,
director.
guys, I'm just standing.
Yeah.
But it's also, that's just how I visualize it. I just put myself in a place where I can see it.
Yeah.
And I did it as a DP. It was just, you just kind of get into that space of being able to, you can anticipate the problems more easily. But when I was first operating, to be able to physically go stand in that other spot was really
it's invaluable. Mm-hmm. And the flip side of that, by the way, is if the DP has talked about, before we see the rehearsal, like, we're going to be over here, and it's going to be this and whatever. I'll sort of look at that, but I'll also walk around a little bit and see what other opportunities there are. Yeah. And a lot of times I'll plant somewhere where I actually think it might be a more interesting shot so that they hopefully see me, and then I'm sort of like eyeing over there, and then they'll come over and look, and maybe they'll do it or maybe they won't, but it's also a way of sort of like going, I don't know, there's something cool over here. So like to walk around the room like that. And it depends on the show. I mean, some shows you don't want to do that because actors are like, why are they walking around?
Why are you being creepy over there
in the
corner?
What are you looking for?
I mean, it's definitely, those are when we talk about like operators that I like working with and that I really respond to, that's exactly the kind of thing that happens, because it's hard to think of everything all the time. And so sometimes you get fixated in the blocking, or you're in a
Sure.
whole other, you have your attention on something entirely different than exactly where the camera's going to go.
Yep.
So to have an operator who then can wave at you from the corner of the room and go, and then thumbs
give
up,
the thumbs
and that's the best, because that it just means you're all collaborating and making the same show together.
Sure.
And that's the operator's job, is to find the best looking angle.
Yeah.
And that's going to suit the blocking that you've just set. So to allow them the space to do that, I think is, like, I hate telling people how to do their jobs, because I'm not qualified to tell people how to do their jobs. But also
That's
because,
not what I remember.
listen,
I remember a lot of, really, you're going to do that? Okay.
well, that's one way to do
That's
it, but
fine
you're the
for
operator.
you, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's your world.
No, but that's good, because you're going, look, my job is this and your job is this, and we're each doing our own thing, and hopefully we're meeting in the middle on the same story, and that's the key.
Yeah, and it's just nice to, like, when you have those moments and those levels of communication where it's just like a look or a wave, and you're like, yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah.
That's the most fun, because then it's, you go do you do what your specialization is, and then I'm gonna go worry about something else.
And also you can go, okay, I can check that off the list, and now I'm under the next damage control.
I'll go worry about something else.
Exactly.
When they come to you and say, oh, this jacket doesn't match, or we're not allowed to have this shirt, or you can't see the left side of his head. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, we forgot to tell you, this wall doesn't exist, so you can't look this way. Oh, all right.
All right, let me throw out everything I did last night and just start this
Okay,
anew.
thanks. That's nice.
You told me earlier that you have an ASC distinction.
That's right. It's so rare that you get to be a first of anything. And my ASC distinction is that I'm the first daughter of an ASC member to join the ASC.
That's pretty cool. Was that a cool thing?
It was so cool.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
Are you the first or the only? Like, are there others?
I don't know if there are any others, but I was the first.
You were the first.
And I haven't been a member that long, because it took me a while to join, but I was so excited to be a member. I was so excited to be part of that organization that my dad was part of. And,
That's pretty cool.
And it meant a lot to him to have those initials. And so it's, for me, it's a very cool distinction that I'm part of that.
That's pretty neat.
That club.
Well, and also, by the way, it's a real indicator of that things have changed, right? I mean, they're still changing, but the fact that because I would guess that when your dad got in, my daughter's going to be an ASC member? No.
Pigs fly.
Is the bar open? How much have we been drinking? Because from your first explanation of him saying that, I don't think that was the norm.
It was not norm, but Brianne Murphy was one of the members who sponsored my dad to come into the ASC.
Oh, that's cool. Well, there you go. So it comes around. Well, this has been really great, and you didn't make fun of me nearly as much as I thought, so I'm kind of happy about that.
We can start over.
Maybe there'll be outtakes and bloopers and whatnot. I do remember, actually, Citizen Bane's main reason it was fun was because we stood next to each other and just had a really good time. And I sort of wonder if that was a great show, if it would have been different, but I shouldn't bust on Citizen Bane's. It actually had its moments, and Jamie Cromwell was fantastic to work with.
Jamie Cromwell was amazing.
He was amazing.
And it was some aspects of the show were worth it, and working with Chris Chulak was worth it. And and I still am in the John Wells world.
That's right.
Which is kind of amazing.
You're kind of majorly in the John Wells world, but you left the John Wells world and then came back, right?
I left the John Wells world. So do we have time for? I'll tell you how I became a director story.
There's still tape there.
Okay, excellent.
I don't think it's tape. For anybody who knows John Wells, who doesn't know, John Wells is a writer, producer, showrunner, show creator, West Wing, which I worked on, by the way.
Oh, that's the show. Oh,
yeah,
nice.
ER, which I also worked on. Third Watch.
Did that win any Emmys?
I worked on Third Watch. Hang on, let me talk for a second. No, but he's done what? He's 25, 30 years of huge hits.
Yes, so he's a television Icon.
Yeah.
And I was very, very lucky to work with him. I also worked on ER.
Did you?
I did the first season when I was a second AC.
Really?
Yes.
So with Guy B?
No, with
Ron
Vidor.
Ron Vidor. Oh,
that's right.
You worked on like the first 2 episodes
Yes.
then, or something like that.
Yes.
Wow.
And then I went back to college because I wanted to finish college, and I thought, who's going to watch this show? No one's going to watch this show. This is so lame.
Yeah.
So it shows you what I know. And then I got my degree in psychology, and then came back and tried to forge a way through the camera department. So when I was working with John on Animal Kingdom, and I shot a season of Shameless, and then came back to Animal Kingdom. And
Shameless is also his show?
Yes.
Okay.
Oddly enough. And I set a meeting with him and went into his office and said I'd like to direct, and he was like, oh, not another one. There was really it's like a heavy sense of disappointment. And he said, well, I don't want part-time directors. I want, we give 2 episodes, you can do those 2 episodes, and then you can move up, and good luck to you, or you can do the job that you were hired to do. Because I think it became, for some, it can be like a reward or a bonus. And so I think rather than to continue giving out that bonus, just to make it more of like, hey, here's your opportunity. If you want the opportunity, you can take it.
Yeah. And
he said, when I usually tell new directors to spend some time in editorial, I said, okay. And then I don't think he expected me to take him quite so seriously, because then I sat behind him at John Wells Productions watching him do his final edit.
John, why are you making that cut? You
for
make
like
that cut?
2.5 months. For like a little troll sitting right behind him. And he'd like occasionally look back at me like,
still
okay.
here.
Oh, you're still here. Oh, nice. Good. I'm so glad we had that
So
talk.
glad.
So
Yeah.
happy you're here.
Yep.
Drinking the coffee at John Wells Productions. So he said, well, what do you want to start with? And I said Shameless. So I started with a Shameless. And then that went surprisingly well. and then I did an Animal Kingdom. And then they gave me another Shameless to do. And then I was set to do another Animal Kingdom, and then COVID hit. So I was in the middle of prep when we shut down. And then I was given the opportunity to do 2 episodes after that. So
nice.
I did more than my
clearly you
episodes.
Passed the audition.
Yes, and I was just in a good place to be able to do that.
But also that was your show as a DP, so it was like
my show as a
family
DP,
and
so I was very supported in both those environments, which was really nice.
That's
great. And it taught me a tremendous amount to sit behind him in editorial, watching him.
Absolutely.
Especially things that I'd shot and things I hadn't shot, that there were things that I thought would work great that didn't, and things that I thought would never work that did. So it was invaluable to sit there and just watch him go through that process.
Oh, because you were on set shooting it, cutting it in your brain, and then you go and you see it cut, and you're like, that's what you're doing with that.
I see. When you actually have an editor who knows what they're doing.
Well, and on top of which, he's an incredibly talented storyteller. He's been doing it forever, and I mean, has learned from the best and taught the best, and et cetera, et cetera. So he knows it's a good person to learn from.
And his adjustments are so intrinsically. That's just part of his knowledge set and his skill set is to look at a scene and know exactly how to make it better.
Yeah.
Which was really, it was something to be able to sit behind him and just watch that process.
Yep. Well, the reason I said earlier was when I was on ER season 5, they gave me an episode to direct, and after I finished it, I don't know if they'd been thinking of this before, but there were some other people who wanted to direct, and they sent it down to everybody that you get 2 episodes, but the first day of prep on your second episode is your last day working on ER. And so I don't know if it was because of me, but that's when we first heard about it. And it was very much this thing of like, you can stake your flag there, but this is the end of your experience with this show, and we'll give you 2, and then you have to go out and make your own way. And if you come back, da-da-da-da. So, sorry.
No, I mean, look, it's
I think it makes sense, actually.
It does make sense, and
because the reality is, You don't want an entire crew of directors.
Well, no, you want people who are passionate about it and have a chance at actually doing something rather than, well, I want to try this.
Yeah. This would be fun or whatever.
And that can happen when you're all on a show together for long periods of time and many years, and that becomes that thing of everyone gets comfortable, and then they start looking around like, well, I like the car that guy drives,
Yeah.
and I like the chair he sits in, and I'd like to sit there.
Yeah, agreed.
And then you just have to be driven to do something if you really want to try it.
And that's the thing that I think they were saying was that you have to want this bad enough to do it. It's not just like I'll do that next week.
Right.
Exactly. Which there are people out there who do that. So
exactly. And I wasn't working on Shameless at the time. I was only shooting Animal Kingdom. So and I thought that would be a good one to start with, and I was right, just because that cast was so good, and they were so set in what their characters were.
Sure.
And I knew that it would be much harder for me to mess it up as a director, as
which
a
is
first-time
a good place
director,
to go.
which is, I like to really set myself up
that's
for
good.
success.
That's good. It's smart. It's absolutely right.
And on Animal Kingdom, it was challenging. I mean, we Ellen Barkin was the lead, and if you weren't prepared as a director, she could be pretty tough on you.
I did some days there, and I remember that well.
She could be tough.
Yeah.
I mean, she was very nice to me, and I think we had a different relationship because I was the DP.
You were the DP on the show, sure.
And I made her look good,
Yeah.
I mean, which wasn't actually very hard, but she didn't know that, so it was all right. I took credit. So that just set up our dynamic a
Sure.
little bit differently. But if that had been my first episode,
Yeah.
I think it would have been.
But like
much
you said
harder.
earlier, she trusted you, and therefore, okay, Lauren's in a new position, but I still trust her because I know her.
Right, because I'm
So, yeah.
I know that she's looking out for me.
Yeah, so it's more sort of this is yours to fail, not you have to prove yourself to me. And obviously you didn't. So that's not a bad place to be. So, so John Wells has given you quite a bit of a
Yes.
a boost there. And then you have another show coming up, right?
I have another show coming up
There you
with
go.
John Wells.
That you'll be the producing director
That
on?
I'll be the producing director on.
Not a bad place to be.
Not a bad place to be. And the showrunner for that is Matt Kester, who's a really lovely, talented guy. And
That's great.
so it should be fun. And it's always, when you're working with some of the level of John Wells, who has been making television for a really long time, if you're even in the room, you learn something.
Sure.
I think even when you pull into the parking lot, you're learning something because you just can't help it. That just that level of experience and knowledge and the decisions that get made on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
Is very educational. So I'm excited for that.
Well, Loren, this has been great. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to leave you with the question that I leave everybody. Someone who's moving up to become an operator, someone who's getting into the business, Loren Yaconelli 20 years ago, talking to Loren Yaconelli now, what advice would you give them to succeed?
So that's an excellent question. And I knew you were going to ask me this question, and I don't have a good answer for it. But
Thank you very much for being here. It's been a good day.
thanks, everybody. I hope this was helpful.
I have no idea.
I think it's important to know what drives you to stand on a film set and to stand behind the camera, and it's important to know the kind of storyteller that you want to be. Because without that, I think it takes something away from that experience, because being a camera operator really is one of the best jobs that exists on a film set. And if you allow yourself to participate in a level of pure storytelling, then I think you're really achieving something. And it doesn't matter what the level of the project is or what kind of project it is, but if you approach it on a level of, how does my framing change based on the story? How does my approach change based on what I'm seeing from the actors and from the script, and that level of being a collaborator and a storyteller. I think that's the heart of making a show.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Don't forget to check us out on theop.io for all sorts of information on operating and storytelling. So thanks for listening and have a great day.